All right, Brinkman's firsties. First, before I go on with a lesson about using the pronouns I and me, I wanted to review with you first subject and predicate. We've talked a lot about this in class, but just in case you've forgotten, let's talk a little bit about it again. Remember, the subject of the sentence is the who or the what the sentence is about. The predicate is the what they're doing, and usually you could figure out the predicate by first finding the verb, and everything after the verb is going to be a part of the predicate. So let's look at this one for example. Number one, the dog jumped high. What's the action in this sentence? You're right, jumped is the action in the sentence. So now we can ask ourselves, we know now that this is the beginning of the predicate, okay? This is where the sentence breaks. So the dog is part of the subject, and jumped high is the predicate, okay? Let's look at another one. The balloon popped loudly. Again, to find the predicate, it can sometimes be easy to find the verb, the action word. Can you find the action word of what's happening in this sentence? Yes, the action word is popped. Okay, since the action word is popped, we know that everything having to do with it, this is all part of the predicate. So our sentence breaks here. This is the subject, the balloon, and the predicate is popped loudly. Let's look at one more for review. The girl ran across the yard. Now, what is the action word? What is the verb in this sentence? Right, the verb is ran. Okay, so the entire predicate is ran across the yard. That means our sentence breaks here. So the girl is our subject, and ran across the yard is the predicate. Okay, so now when we move into using I and me, which are pronouns for when you're talking about yourself, there are two important rules that I want you to remember. One is that when you are talking about yourself as part of the subject of the sentence, remember that's sort of like in a simple sentence, that would be the beginning of the sentence. Okay, when you're what it's all about, the subject, you use the pronoun I. When you're talking about something happening to you and you are a part of the predicate, you use the word me, use the pronoun me. So this is rule number one. If you're part of the subject, you use I, and if you're part of the predicate, you use me. And remember, you can figure out if it's the predicate or the subject by first finding that verb like we just did. The second rule is be polite. Always put other names before the pronouns I and me. I like to think of this like when I'm going into a store and I'm opening the door. Initially I was opening the door for myself, but maybe I see somebody else that's coming right next to me. I'm going to hold that door open for them because that's the polite thing to do. So same thing in your sentences. Always let the other person, the guest in your sentence, go first. Okay, let's do some practice ones. All right, so we're going to read the rule again here. Name yourself last when you talk about yourself and another person. When you and another person are the subject of a sentence, use the word I. When you and another person are in the predicate of a sentence, use the word me. So for example, this one says, Carol and I play with the kitten. Now I know that this is part of the subject because I can see that the word play right here, that is the action word, okay? That's the verb. So that means that this whole part, play with the kitten, is the predicate, okay? That means this is the subject. And they also followed the rule because they allowed Carol to go first in the sentence. Another example here, it says, Dad helps John and me. Again, we're using now me because it's in the predicate. We know it's in the predicate because we can find the verb. The verb, the action word here, is helps. Okay, making helps John and me be all part of the predicate. Dad is the subject. Okay, they also followed the rule. They put John before themselves. Okay, let's do a practice here. They have them pretty written close together, so I'm going to draw a line between the choices here. All right, let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Maybe not. I guess the zoom's not working. Okay, I and Sam, or Sam and I, watch the puppies. Well, when I'm looking at this, I see that they're using the word I, the pronoun I, in both choices, which is correct because watched is the verb, so that means we are talking about the subject. Now, which one of those choices is correct, do you think? Remember the rules? Good. Sam and I would be the correct choice because they place the other person before themselves. Manners always. Okay, how about this one? Mom took Sally and me, or me and Sally, to the zoo. Okay, well, they're using me in both choices, which is correct because took is the action word. Took is the action word, making this whole rest of the sentence part of the predicate. So now I have to choose which one of those two would be the correct one. Which one do you think is correct? Sally and me, or me and Sally? Good job. It would be Sally and me, because you always put the other person before yourself. Okay, let's do a practice down here. Here we go. All right. Our choices here, we have the word Jimmy and we have the word me. They want us to put them in the blanks here to complete the sentence correctly. All right, it says the teacher found and All right, well, let's see. I only have two choices here, so I know that they're going to go in this order. I know for sure that they're right with using the word me because the word found is the verb, which means that this whole thing right here is the predicate. So yes, we're going to use the word me. Now, which order should it go in? Should it go Jimmy and me, or should it go me and Jimmy? What do you think? Good. If you're following rule number 2, it was to be polite. Always let the other person go first. So you're going to put Jimmy and me. All right, the next one. They're giving me the choices of I and Rose, and they want me to finish the sentence. Blank and blank fed the ducks. So should it be I and Rose fed the ducks, or Rose and I fed the ducks? Which one do you think? Yes, it would be Rose and I fed the ducks. Good job. All right, let's go ahead and look real quickly at one of our practice book pages that you're going to do today for this lesson. You can find it on page 97. It's going to look like this. All you're doing today is you're choosing between these two, making sure you name yourself last, okay? But remember, you have to choose the correct one based on if it's a predicate or if it's part of the subject. All right, so here it says blank see the goat. Okay, so now, well, it looks like they named themselves last in both of them. So now I'm actually having to choose between me and I. So what we're going to do is we're going to, again, look to see what the verb is. Here the verb is see. So see the goat is the predicate. So I need to use the one that is good for the subject, which is I. So Jean and I see the goat. A little trick is if you take the other person away from the sentence and say the sentence to yourself without the other person, you might be able to hear that it would sound weird. So for example, if I decided to choose Jean and me see the goat, if I took away Jean and I put the word me right there, would it make sense to say me see the goat? No, we wouldn't normally say that. Okay, how about this one? Let's try this one. If I put this one into this blank, okay, but if I cover up the other person and I just say the pronoun I see the goat. Does that make sense? Yes, yes it does. Okay, the same thing can happen when it's in the predicate. Let's look at number 2 together. Okay, it says Dad took blank to the zoo. Okay, is it going to be I and Steve, or is it going to be Steve and me? Well, there's one rule here for sure that you know needs to be true, and you know that you always have to put the other person first. So I kind of already know that this one's not going to work because they put themselves first. And just to double check, we're going to pretend that we put this one in the sentence. And I'm going to cover up the and Steve, and I'm going to try it out. Dad took I to the zoo. Would that make sense? No, that wouldn't make sense. How about this one, Steve and me? If I put that one in there, but I covered up the Steve and, let's see if that would make sense. Dad took me to the zoo. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. Okay, so remember your 2 rules, that you use I for the subject and you use me for the predicate. And rule number 2, you always be polite and let the other person go first. I want you to go ahead and try number 3 and try number 4 at the bottom here, completing the sentence. All right, good job.